Welcome, everyone. We will begin the webinar on DeVilbiss Air Control and new products. I'm Melissa Joels with RDA Impact. Kevin Creegan, National Accounts Manager, and Jeffrey Bell, Account Manager, National Accounts for Saint-Gobain Abrasives, are your presenters today. The presentation will take approximately 35 to 40 minutes. We are recording it and will post it on our YouTube channel. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and they will be answered during the presentation. Now, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your business day to attend this second in our RDA exclusive webinars. Today we're going to be covering DeVilbiss Air Control and DeVilbiss new products. Our agenda for today is on DeVilbiss Air Control. We'll cover air systems, point-of-use air filtration, air regulation, air control accessories, and just about everything that you might need to know about air control or helping to design an air control system. And then DeVilbiss new products, we're going to pay special attention to the DV1 new Basecoat and Clearcoat guns that have been introduced last fall and in 2018, respectively. If you have not seen those guns in action, if you've not seen a demo on those guns, they're awesome. They're really exciting. It's a quality product from the packaging right down to the gun itself. And so you're going to learn a little bit more about each of those today. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Jeff Bell, our presenter. Take it away, Jeff.
Okay, well, thank you, Kevin, and thanks, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to join us. And again, there's a little chat box so you can type your questions in if you have them as we go along, or if you'd like to save them till the end, we'll be glad to answer them at that time. So we're going to start out by talking about air control. This first slide is an overview of a compressed air system. And as we get into this, this will explain more as to why we're showing this now, and we'll explain the attributes to it as we go through. So you see the compressor, the piping, how it runs uphill, how we have an air dryer. This is what we call a loop system. So the air is fed to the shop in a complete loop around the shop, with your drops coming off the top of what we call the header pipe. And the advantage to doing that is to keep all contamination in the piping system, or in theory, when the air is not flowing, all the contamination will drain back into the compressor, and it's easier to remove any moisture, oil, contaminant out of the compressor than it is to remove it downstream. So that's the reason that you'll see the piping coming off the top of the header pipe and the drops and the drop legs and things like that. So point of use filtration, again, I won't read this whole presentation slide by slide, but I think this first slide is pretty important. So the air quality needed for spray operation is different than that needed for air tools. To ensure that enough air is supplied to all shop applications, air systems are run at high pressure, regulated down at the drops to meet specific needs. Point of use air filtration units will provide the cleanest, most contaminant-free air. So painting a car, you need way cleaner air than you do in a mechanic shop, tire changing shop, anything like that. As we all know, any type of moisture, oil, dirt, contamination that comes through the airline can cause all types of issue with painting, from visible dirt or contamination in the job. And if it's something we don't see, if it's some sort of moisture or oil, it could even cause delamination between coats, undercoat to top coat, base coat to clear coat, or things like that if the contamination in the system is severe enough. So anytime we have air filtration for spray painting, it's going to be cleaner than the air that's used anywhere else in any type of application there is. And from a DeVilbiss standpoint, point of use air filtration units will always provide you with the cleanest air possible. I can tell you stories about a local shop here in Ohio that built a brand new shop, and they did the aluminum piping, they did the whole thing. Their compressors they put in a couple big dryers, and the compressor people sold them the units and said, you don't need any other filtration. So they had nothing at their drops. They have 2 prep decks, 2 spray booths, 5 body men, and every drop had nothing except a coupler on the end of it to plug a hose into. And when we went and looked at it, I didn't want to argue with the guy telling him that he needed to have point of use filtration in his booths and in his prep decks, and at least a water trap for the body men. But I just told him to go back to the paint company. I says, if you go back to your paint company tech rep and he tells you that's okay, I'm fine with that. Well, about 3 days later, he called me and I went back in and we sold him, a DAD Pro for the prep decks and the booths, and we put a HAR 602 water trap separator at every body man stall. So no matter how good the filtration is at the compressor and coming off, you still need point of use filtration. You don't know what's going to happen to those airlines in the future, what type of contamination gets into them. Most of these airlines are run up by the ceiling of the shop where they're hot. The heat always rises, and as air moves downstream, it cools off. As it cools off, it creates condensation, and that's the type of contamination we're looking at getting out of these filter units. So the first filter unit we're going to talk about are centrifugal filters. These are basically your water traps. These will take out dirt, water, and some oil. This is what we call a spinning effect or a tornado effect. As the air comes into the unit, you can see in this diagram how it hits that baffle plate, creates the air to spin. As it spins through that unit, the air hits the side of the bowl, which pulls the moisture out. The moisture runs down to the bottom of the bowl. The air goes back up through the center of the filter on down to the next unit in line. If it's in a body man or mechanic shop, it may go into the hose. If it's going to be a paint shop, our second stage is going to be an oil coalescer. So these are always going to be, from a DeVilbiss standpoint, I can't speak for competitive brands. I'm not sure what they all do, but our filters, the first stage, are always a 5-micron filter. And the reason we use a 5-micron filter is because the dirt specks that the naked eye can see in a paint job are 10 micron or larger. So if you're seeing contamination that's in a paint job and you're running DeVilbiss pre-filters that are clean and maintained, it's not coming through the airstream. It's coming from somewhere else. And we all know that dirt in paint jobs comes from 4 places. It comes off the car, off the painter, out of the air hose, or through the intake filters of the booth. So if you're seeing it in the paint job and the filters are maintained, it's not coming through the air hose, it's somewhere else. How often do these filters need to be changed? Depends on the maintenance of the compressor, the location, auto drains, all that type of stuff. But once you get into your shops and start to see what they have in place and how things are working, you start to figure out, how often they need to be changed. I would say every 6 months, would be a minimum, but we do have guys that go a little longer. We have some guys that are changing them every 3 or 4 months. So this is the overview of the previous slide. The previous slide was the insides looking at this one. This is the 13042 air filter with a regulator. Again, it's a 5-micron filter. Most of these units that are sold individually as water traps have manual drains. So it's like a Schrader valve on a tire. You just push it sideways, the air drains out, or the contamination drains out. You let go, the air pressure seals it shut. This is a 100 CFM unit, but it only has a 60 CFM regulator. So the weakest point there for CFM usage is going to be the regulator. There is a unit available if someone needs more CFM that's sold without the regulator. You'll see that part number listed there at the bottom. That's the 130041. Same assembly as far as the filtration unit goes. It just does not come with a regulator. Okay. If you want to step down in price point, a little more economical unit would be the HR 602. This is the Finish Line Series air control. Again, it's a 5-micron particle. So as far as taking out contamination, it's going to do the same thing as a 130042. Removes moisture and dirt, manual drain. It's an 80 CFM unit with a 50 CFM regulator. So if we back up one and you see a 100 CFM unit and a 60 CFM regulator, now we have an 80 CFM unit with a 50 CFM regulator. So a little bit less cubic feet of air a minute. Okay. The difference in the units, this, instead of having the auto or the manual drain at the bottom like the first one where you just push it off to the side, this one has like a little wing nut. So you have to physically, thread that wing nut. The air pressure will blow the contamination out, tighten it back up. This unit has 4 Allen screws in the top housing that you have to remove those screws all the way out and remove the orange bowl to change the filter. The previous unit just has what they call a quick quarter turn lock. It's just a quick button you push, turn a quarter turn, the whole bowl drops off. So from a maintenance standpoint, the 130042 is a little easier to maintain, but they both do exactly the same thing. The key to any of these units, either one of them, make sure you're draining that drain daily. You know, if you know you have an issue, maybe you drain it twice a day. Maybe when you come back from lunch, you drain it. You shouldn't really be seeing these first 2 units in the paint booth by themselves. They should be always with something else. But these you will see in body shops and on the body man side, mechanic shop, things like that. And if the guy gets in the habit of draining it daily, they work very good and they last a long time. Okay, a step up from those. This is very similar to the HAR 602, the orange unit we just looked at. The difference is this is truly a 3-stage unit. This is the QC3 or the 130525. This unit here will do water, oil, and humidity because there's a desiccant cartridge in there. It removes water and oil and humidity down to 0.01 micron, clean air, easy maintenance for quick change filters. Again, this is still a manual drain. The only issue that we have with this particular unit is it tends to be put in places where it's overworked. So what I mean by that is this will get you as good a clean of air as the DAD Pro, which is the 3-stage, the big unit that we'll be talking about here shortly, but it only has a 1-pound desiccant charge. When you look at the other unit, it's a 10-pound desiccant charge. So you're going to get roughly 10 times the life out of it. If you got some place that needs super clean dry air, pneumatic gun usage for panel bonding, plasma cutters. If you're at a small shop that the guy's painting 2 cars a week or something like that, this would be perfect. Okay, it has the humidity indicator on the front of it, as you can see, the blue dot, and then on the yellow label, it shows blue to pink to white. When that indicator changes, it's time to change the desiccant. There's 4 little screws in the top. You just loosen them up, quarter turn the bowl comes off, and the whole unit is 1 cartridge. You just replace the whole cartridge, put it back in. It's less than a 5-minute maintenance. But I would not put this in any shop that are painting, 5, 6, 8, 10 cars a week. It's not made for your A and B production shops. They will go through cartridges really fast, and they'll spend more money replacing the cartridges than they would if they just bought, an $800-900 unit up front that they had to maintain, 3 times a year instead of once a week. But again, pneumatic air guns for panel bonding, plasma cutters, things like that, where you need clean, dry air. Some of the local Ford dealers here are using them in their aluminum bays because they want to make sure they got clean, dry air in there, and it works great in cases like that. Excuse me. Now the DAD Pro. DAD, Desiccant Air Drying System. This is the Pro unit. So as you can see, from left to right, we have our water trap, our separator, our oil coalescer would be the 2nd stage, and then the big tank is a desiccant tank. So this is the best unit that we offer. It's a great unit. Again, it's a point of use unit, easy to maintain, replacement cartridges. It's a little tough to see, but just to the right of the desiccant tank, between that and the regulator, you see that little green dot? That is the inline humidity indicator. So you'll look on the label and you'll see green is good and yellow means change. When that indicator changes to yellow, it's time to change a desiccant. This is probably the easiest maintaining unit on the market. There's 6 9/16 bolts in the top. You remove those bolts, take the lid off. There's a desiccant bag in there. You pull the desiccant bag out, goes in the trash. You drop the new bag in. You tighten up the bolts. In the first 2 stages, the first stage removes water, dirt, and oil down to 5 micron. The 2nd stage is your oil coalescer to take oil vapors and dirt particles down to 0.01 micron. Both of those orange bowls are anodized aluminum with O-ring seals. They will not corrode to the block in which they thread into. They will come apart very easy. You just unthread the bowl, change the filter in the first stage, change the filter in the 2nd stage, slide the bowls back on, they'll come back up. These particular units have automatic drains, which are float valves. So much contamination gets in, the float raises up, the air pressure blows the contamination out. You'll also notice that there's ball valves on the inlet and the outlet. Ideally, we would recommend these units to be mounted outside the spray booth. And the reason is a couple reasons. First of all, it keeps it much cleaner. It doesn't get overspray and everything all over it. And the other thing is, once you have your booth set to a bake cycle and you got 20, 30, 40 minutes of so said downtime, this is a great opportunity to go in and maintain your air filtration unit. You don't have to go in the booth and create a bunch of, turbulence or anything while your paint's in there drying. You can do this outside the booth. So what a lot of guys will do is pipe off of the desiccant tank with an elbow, go into the booth and mount the regulator in the booth so you can adjust your pressure in the booth, but yet keep the unit outside. So this is the premium unit that we offer. Again, maintenance-wise, I got guys that are every 6 months, and then we have some guys that are, 3-4 months. A lot of this depends on the quality of air going in. So until you install a unit and you kind of get that gauge the first time to know how it works, it's hard for us to sit here and just say, this is how often you need to maintain it. So all desiccant dryers should have a glass eye to show the desiccant when it gets saturated. This is pretty simple. Green is good, yellow it's time to change. Some of the units, if you're familiar with the old DAD 500, that particular humidity indicator went from blue to pink. Okay, it just depends on what type of desiccant, what type of litmus paper that they're using to indicate the humidity saturation. But either green to yellow or blue to pink, and it's time to change the desiccant. One thing I'll back up real quick that gets brought up about desiccant. Guys will ask, can I bake it? Can I bake the desiccant? Can I dry it out? Well, the honest answer, yes, you can. But in reality, this desiccant comes in a bag. You'd have to take it out of the bag. You got to spread it out on a cookie sheet. And remember what this desiccant is saturating. It's saturating all the vapors, the oil, the contamination, everything that comes through that airline. So I've never done it myself, but I've heard that when you bake this desiccant, it stinks something awful. So, it's nothing that you'd want to do in your house. So we don't recommend it, but you will hear stories about guys that say they have done it. So again, because of the way it's in the bag, it's all sealed up in there. It's not practical from a time-wise standpoint. So regulators, all your air filtration units should have air regulation. Again, we run high-pressure air compressors. Most of them are running, 130, 40, 50 pounds up to 170 pounds. There's no way we want that much air pressure in our spray gun, so we use a regulator to regulate that pressure what we want. So this particular one is the 130516. Has a locking knob. You pull out on the knob on the front, adjust it to the pressure you want, push the knob in. This is a self-relieving regulator. What I mean by that is if this regulator is set at 80 pounds and you need to back it off to 50 pounds, is you back off, pull that knob out and back off on that knob counterclockwise, the pressure will relief out of that regulator and drop off. And once it gets to the desired pressure, you can just lock the knob again. Some regulators are non-relieving regulators, which means you would have to back the pressure all the way down, hit the trigger on the gun or the air tool on the hose to release the pressure, and then readjust your pressure accordingly. These are all point of use units, again, for regulation. They're not meant to regulate the air in the whole shop. Okay? So automatic drains. This kind of relates back to the diagram we talked at the beginning, and there's also a diagram at the end that'll show these. This is probably one of the most undersold pieces of equipment that DeVilbiss offers. And I don't know why, because every shop should have at least one, if not two. This is a great tool for you guys to get a hold of your local rep. Most guys have a demo, carry it around, show shops. They're a touch over $200 list price, $225, somewhere right in there. This is an automatic drain with a Y strainer valve. The ideal place is on the bottom of the compressor. Plugs into your 110 outlet. And this valve has two controls on it. One controls how often the valve opens. The other knob controls how long the valve stays open. So you guys have all been in the shop and you hear that air valve blow off, you hear that psh of air that goes out throughout the shop. That's the automatic drain blowing off, letting the contamination out of the compressor. If your shop is piped right and all your header pipes and everything are running uphill, so when air's not flowing through, they're draining back to the compressor, that's the easiest way to get contamination out of a system, is to get it out of the compressor right from the start. So this thing has got a manual override that if something happens, you can open up the valve and drain it manually, so it's not like your compressor is going to sit there and fill up with water. It won't do that. So you can adjust this. You can lay it on its side. It can stand upright. It doesn't matter which direction it's in. What's really nice about it also is when you look at the inlet, on that inlet, that's 1/2 inch outside threads, but it's got 3/8 inside threads. So you can hook it up either way. Some guys will pipe off the bottom of the compressor and bring that, 2 feet away from it, outside the compressor, from underneath of it, if they want. You can do all kinds of stuff with it, but it's a great tool to have to get the contamination out of the compressor. Let me back up for just a second and just talk about compressors for a minute. As compressors run and they compress air, they create heat, and that heat creates hot air, and that hot air is what goes into the compressor. As that air travels downstream, it cools off. As it cools off, it does what? It creates condensation. That's where the moisture comes from. So those tanks, we've all seen shops or been in shops where they got this 80-gallon tank, but it's, got 3 or 5, or I've seen them 1/3 of the way full of water, where you open up the valve and, water runs out of the bottom of the compressor for, 30, 40 minutes, and they wonder why they're not getting the volume. This is a great tool to go in and fix that problem with. The only thing that I'll tell guys with automatic drains, they're great when they work. The problem is when they don't work, nobody knows because they're supposed to be automatic. So if you got a painter that's very good at doing his maintenance and he doesn't have a problem with doing manual drains and he checks them every day, I think manual drains are great. If you got a painter that's not so much, but yet he hears that auto drain going off every day, he hears that burst of air, every 45 minutes, that thing opens up for 3 seconds, and you hear that, that's fine too. You just need to be conscious enough to know that when you're not hearing that auto drain go off, like, I haven't heard that auto drain go off yet today. Just need to go over and check it. Maybe it's going off and you just haven't heard it because you become accustomed to it, but just make sure that it's working. But that's a great tool. So a shop could have one of those at the bottom of the compressor and also at the drop leg that's the farthest away from everything. That's the 2 places you're going to get the most contamination. And if you put those in shops and they're hooked up right, you can help on shop defects immensely with stuff that's coming through the airstream. Talk a little bit about air hose. In body shops, prep decks, paint shops, I always recommend 3/8, never anything any smaller. And for auto refinish business, which is 90% of what we do, a 35-foot hose will get you reasonably around the car both directions. People always ask how long an air hose should I have. Well, as short as possible to allow you to do your job effectively. If I'm standing at a workbench painting little parts when they come by all day, I may only need a 4-foot hose. But if I'm painting a car, I need to be able to get both directions all the way around that car. And with a regulator being either at the front of the booth or on the side of the booth, a 35-foot hose is the ones that'll do that. So our particular HA 5867 is a premium hose. It's synthetic rubber tube, has a protective coating on the outside, comes with the 35-foot hose assembly. It comes with the HC 4419, which is the HVLP stem, and it comes with the HC 4719, which is the high flow coupler, the male coupler as well. So when you order that assembly, you get the HVLP coupler stem, the whole deal. The opposite end of that hose has the 1/4-inch swivel connection, which is what will connect straight to any DeVilbiss air filtration. All of our air filtration units have the 1/4-inch ball valves, that's 1/4-inch thread ball valves coming off of those, so our air hose will connect straight to them. I've been in shops where guys, their hose are 3, 4, 5 years old. I tell them they need to replace it. They pick it up, they wipe it off, they say, look at it, it looks great. Remember, these hoses have protective covers on the outside. So the protective cover is meant to protect what's on the inside. How many times does it get driven over with the car tire? How many times does it get caught behind the tire and get kinked and broke down? How many times does it lay on the floor when the guy runs it through a bake cycle? You think about the abuse an air hose takes. our recommended procedure for changing out an air hose, minimum once a year in the spray booth. I'm not saying you got to take that hose and throw it away. Put it on the prep deck, give it to a body man. It's not a bad hose. It's just not up to the standards that we want to see it in a paint booth. We don't want a hose breaking down on the inside and little chunks of rubber or synthetic or anything coming loose and getting into your paint job, because that's where hoses break down. It's from the inside out, not the outside in. So the other thing to remember, anytime you replace an air filtration unit in a shop, always replace the air hose. There's no reason in the world you should put a $1,000 air filtration unit on a wall and then leave that old air hose on there. Because if he's getting contamination in his job, it could be from that hose. So you always want to make sure you change a hose. Okay, this is a nice little slide. This is why we recommend 3/8 air hose. We'll just keep it simple. 35-foot hose, 25 CFM of air. So say we're running an HVLP gun and a breathable air mask, you're going to be pushing 25 CFM of air. If I'm running a 3/8 hose, I got a 10-pound pressure drop from one end to the other. Look what happens if I drop to a 5/16 hose. My pressure drop. Look what happens if I have a 1/4-inch hose, which we don't even offer anymore, but this is just for, so you can see the pressure loss difference. So you always want to make sure you run HVLP hose, 3/8. And if you get into some of your truck shops and stuff, then you'll run 50-foot hose, so you can see the difference in the pressure loss there as well. Okay? The HAF 507, the Whirlwind filters. In my mind, these are a tool, and they're a great tool. You walk into a shop, the guy's complaining, I can get contamination in my paint job. I don't know where it's coming from. I just changed my filters. Did they not put something in right? I don't know. Send him out a Whirlwind filter, the HAF 507, have him put it on a spray gun. You're using it as a tool to figure out what's going on. If the problem goes away and his paint jobs don't come out clean, you have a problem with either the air filtration on the wall or the air hose, because that's what you've changed. You put an air filtration unit at the base of the spray gun. If you put that HAF 507 at the base of the spray gun and he still gets dirt and contamination, then it's not the wall filtration, it's not the air hose. It's going to be the painter, it's going to be the car, it's going to be the booth. But it's not going to be the compressed air coming in, because you're using that as a tool to fix it. These things do remove water, oil, and some dirt at point of use. They're good for about a paint job. I've been to places where they don't have very good wall filtration and they use one of these every day. Well, they're about $7. You want to spend $7 a day, $35 a week, $150 on Whirlwind filters a month. It doesn't take very long to overcome that cost and put a $1,000 good wall unit and not have to use the Whirlwind filter. But it is a great tool. So either carry one around in your car, or anytime you run into contamination issues, it's a great tool to use. Okay, we're going to talk just a minute about couplers and stems. This is a DeVilbiss slide. DeVilbiss created it, so the numbers are accurate, but obviously we're going to show where ours is going to perform the best. This is the DeVilbiss high flow coupler, so this is showing the one that comes on the HA 5867 air hose that has a 1.2 pound pressure drop at a 50 psi inlet pushing 25 CFM. The RBL has a 2.0. The Sharp HVLP has a 3.4. Them are all fine. Anything that's HVLP and you have, 1, 2, 3 pound pressure drop, that's fine. The idea of this slide is to show you basically the Milton Type T or the Milton Type A. These guys that go to Harbor Freight and say, I can buy a whole, a cardboard bubble pack assortment of couplers and stems for $15.95. Well, those are the Milton Type A's. And you got 40 pound pressure drop through one coupler and stem. So guys get those and they put one at the gun and they put another one at the other end of the hose so they can hook it to the wall regulator. Now they're losing 80 pounds and they wonder why they can't paint a car and they got this great big compressor, but they don't have enough air. So especially in a body shop and paint shop, you use more air consistently than any other repair facility. A mechanic runs an air ratchet or an impact in short spurts. A body man may run an 8-inch hogger, a DA or something for a while, but nothing like what a spray gun will use. When you go in to paint a car, if you're painting overall, and you got to work your way around a big car, you need to have consistent airflow all the way around that car, or you're going to have, paint issues. You're going to have lack of airflow could give you color match problems, excessive orange peel, things like that, because you don't have enough atomization air coming through the gun to break the paint up. So one place to always look, make sure guys are using HVLP couplers and stems. Okay, now we go back to the diagram again, and hopefully this explains it a little bit better. As you see the compressor at the bottom left, coming off the bottom of the compressor, we have an auto drain, the 130512 that we talked about. Coming off your compressor, you run a flexible hose that goes into your hardline piping. You never hard pipe right to your compressor. Compressors vibrate, so you want to have something to absorb that vibration instead of just piping it direct, because it can break piping and stuff down the road. We run mainline filtration going up the left side of this diagram. After that, we run a refrigerant dryer. You'll see that the piping actually goes around that refrigerant dryer as well. The reason we do that, if the refrigerant dryer fails, and at some point it will, 3, 5, 8 years down the road, because they get no maintenance, it'll fail. You can turn those ball valves, and the shop's not out of commission. The shop can still continue to do business even though the refrigerant dryer died. We come off the top of that. We run into our loop system. Our drop legs come off the top of the loop system, keeping all the contamination in the piping that we can. On the upper right corner would be our farthest drop. You'll see the auto drain there. That would be the second place for our auto drain drop. And then our two big units would be coming off the prep deck and coming off the spray unit or the spray booth. We would have the DAD Pros, or the 130546 desiccant air drying system, with our HA57, 5867 air hose assemblies connected to your spray gun. So that's a great diagram. It's a good way to show, the drop legs and how things should be plumbed. The other thing I would keep in mind when you get into guys that want to plumb shops, make sure it's someone that understands airflow when they're plumbing. Don't have a guy that does plumbing in houses all day long come in and plumb your air supply, because he's going to plumb it for water lines. We're not plumbing water lines, we're plumbing air. That's different. So that's why you'll see the drops come off the top. Water guys would never do that, right? They just tee off and run on to the next one. The other thing to keep in mind, since we're kind of on the subject, copper or aluminum pipe. If you had to go with a galvanized or black, that's kind of middle of the road, okay, but I would avoid it. I would stay with copper or aluminum, and never, ever PVC. Not the white, not the gray, not the Schedule 80, any of this stuff. We get into a lot of shops where we see guys, they use PVC for a couple reasons. They can cut it with a hacksaw, they can glue it together, but PVC is an insulator, and it's made for water lines. So when your air travels through PVC pipe, it doesn't get a chance to cool off. It stays hot. So your contamination is going to be a lot more. The other thing that happens is that PVC pipe starts to degrade or break down from the inside, from the oil and moisture and stuff going through there. And at some point, I've heard horror stories where this stuff, over time, it might take 12, 15, 18 years, whatever, but this stuff will blow up. So it's not safe at all. So anytime you see someone PVC, please get them to change it. And again, a step up from that would be copper or galvanized or black pipe, but preferably always copper or aluminum. And this new aluminum stuff is so easy to work with. There's no reason people shouldn't be putting aluminum anyways. So that covers the air control. Any questions on anything that we covered there?
We don't have any yet.
Don't be shy, guys. Type away. So the next section we're going to talk about, we have 8 or 10 slides here on the DeVilbiss DV1 Basecoat and DV1 Clearcoat spray guns. One thing we like to talk about as far as atomization a little bit, and I think most of you guys can probably relate to this. So spray guns as we knew them yesterday is kind of the header we put up here. They're made to spray top coats. Finish quality was tied to atomization, right? The finer the atomization, the better the finish. And we always went and bought the least expensive gun we could buy for primer. We went to Harbor Freight and bought our $28 primer gun or whatever it costs to spray primer, because we wanted the finest atomization possible, right? That's just the way things were. Well, waterborne comes along, and low VOC clears come along, and compliant solvents come along, and we found out that It's not necessarily the finest atomization that we want, it's the right atomization. So with today's clear base sealer, primers required specific droplet size to optimize finish while limiting usage. We have guns that are designed to spray primer, guns that are designed to spray sealer, base, and clear. I painted cars myself for 18 years. When I bought a new gun, it became my clear gun. My clear gun became my base became my primer was now my cut-in gun. But they all just got stepped down. That's not the way guns are designed anymore, and that's not the way products are designed anymore. They're designed specifically to spray specific products. So, a little bit about the DV1 spray gun family. I'll back up. The last 15 years, DeVilbiss has had the Techna spray guns, and the Techna guns have run their course. There was the Techna Pro Light. There was the Techna Primer, Techna Base, Techna Clear. This is the next generation. This is the DV1. This is the premium DeVilbiss brand of spray guns. There's two of them available now. On the left, in the silver anodized body, is the Basecoat gun, and on the right is the black anodized Clearcoat gun. We'll talk about both of those. The Basecoat gun was released at SEMA in 2018. Probably one of the most successful spray gun launches that DeVilbiss had. Unfortunately, we had a hard time getting them because the demand was so high. Every time they came in, they were gone. And here we had a very healthy forecast. We thought this was going to be great. We got all kinds of guns, and these things were flying off the shelf. So this has been a very, very successful gun. You can read the bullet points there. Better metallic control, easy to achieve quality finish. This is the easiest spray and base coat gun that you can spray with. It has a very nice soft spray. It's a very quiet spray gun. The metallic control is very good. It's just a very, very nice gun to spray with. Some of the differences and some of the attributes that we've done to this gun versus the previous Techna family. Did you see up on the back of the gun in front of the fan control knob is the gauge. Every gun comes with a premium gauge that's built right onto the gun. So it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, the LED readout screen is right there straight behind you, so you can see that at all times. That gauge is controlled by air pressure. When you trigger the gun, the gauge comes on. When you let go of the trigger and the airflow stops, the gauge shuts off. It's that simple. There's no on-off buttons or anything like that. If you look down at the black knob at the bottom of the handle of the gun, that's where your air fitting would thread into. That is also controls the air adjusting valve for the pressure going into the gun. So the air adjusting valve is built around the air inlet fitting. So it's got a nice little smooth turn to it, helps keep the gun small and compact, and you don't need all that stuff hanging off the bottom of your gun. You don't need the gauge. You don't need everything else hanging off of there that some guys have. The other nice feature that's been changed on this gun is the air cap thread retaining ring is 3/4 of a turn from full on to full off. So previous DeVilbiss guns in the past 3 or 4 turns to take an air cap off. This is 3/4 of a turn, full off to full lock. Okay, improved transfer efficiency, low CFM, quieter spray. These are all things that we were going after. When we sat down to design a spray gun, we come up with a whole list of things we want this gun to do. Now, obviously, some of this stuff's kind of far-fetched, but you know what? It gets put on the list. But there are things that are considered, primary things we need to have and secondary things. And the primary stuff was quieter, stabilized, more efficient, and this gun does that. We'll get into what comes with the gun as we get into the little bit later in this presentation, because it includes in the base and the clear of what comes with it. So we'll cover that together. But there's really only one part number for this gun that comes with the 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. So you don't have to have a bunch of SKUs on your shelf. As your distributor, there's one DV1 base, there's one DV1 Clearcoat gun. And they are both anodized inside and out. They are waterborne compatible, 303 grade stainless on the tips and the needles, all that good quality stuff. On this slide kind of covers both the DV1 base coat and the Clearcoat. So as I mentioned earlier, the base coat gun was released in SEMA in 18. The Clearcoat gun was released in about August or September of 19, so a couple months before SEMA, a year later. Again, sprays at lower pressure. I have some guys, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, I have some guys spraying their Clearcoat at 14 pounds, and they're getting very, very good results, very flat finish. Most of your guys are probably in the 18 to 22 pound range. You know, and again, and just like I got some guys spraying at 14, I got some guys spraying at 24. Most guys are 18 to 22, but I do get some guys that spray as low as 14 pounds, and their transfer efficiency is just amazing with the Clearcoat gun. This gun will make most painters a good painter. It is that easy to apply Clearcoat with. You can adjust it to get your finish quality, what texture you're looking for. I mean, we all know that not every finish is a glass finish, right? A lot of your American-made cars have a little bit of texture, a little bit of peel. You're trying to match that finish. We don't want our cars to be too flat. So it's a very good production gun. Comes with the gauge on the back, just like the other gun. Everything's included. Okay? Very, very even spray pattern. A little more blunt-ended than what the Basecoat gun would be, but you can get by with that with the Clearcoat because it wets up really nice. If we did that with the Basecoat gun, you know, your Basecoat guns are going to have more of a tapered ended pattern to not make sure you don't have blunt ends so you don't get tiger striping and modeling. It needs to be a little bit different pattern. So very evenness, very wets up, very, very nice. Distinctness of image with this Clearcoat gun is amazing. It's been a really, really good mover for us. So if you haven't seen it or used it, please get a hold of your local DeVilbiss rep. We have demo guns available. We also have demo forms available where we sell demo guns to distributors at discounted prices. So we can get you that contact information if you need it and make sure you have that information. The part numbers for the Basecoat gun is 704504. The part number for the Clearcoat gun is 704520. It lists the air cap that they come with. Both guns include the 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4 millimeter fluid tips. The 1.3s will be installed in the gun. The 1.2 and the 1.4 will be in the box. Both of these guns run what we call a tapered seat fluid tip. So one needle fits the same tip from 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 and use the same air cap. So if you want to switch tips, you got the 1.3 in it, and it's not wet enough, you want to go to 1.4, take off the air cap, grab that wrench, that's the 22 millimeter box end wrench that's in that picture there, take the tip out, put the 1.4 in it, tighten it back up, put your air cap on, you're done. Same way goes if you drop a tip or if you damage one through DeVilbiss. You can buy a fluid tip, one. You don't have to buy a tip needle air cap set for $370, $80, $90. You can buy the parts individually. Now, if you had to buy them all separately, would they be $300? Yeah, probably. But you don't have to buy them as a set. You can buy them separately. In that kit also comes with the digital gauge, the tool kit, the valve, the Torx tip. Both guns include the DPC 43 adapter, which is the disposable cup adapter to fit the DeVilbiss guns. Comes in a nice packaging. It's the premium gun. It's the new generation of premium guns by DeVilbiss. It's the DV1 Basecoat and DV1 Clearcoat spray guns. Any questions on those? Quiet group today.
Yes, it is. But I will follow up by sending your information to everybody, so if they do have questions, they can follow up with you directly.
Well, I guess at this time, I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for taking the time out of your day and joining us for our presentation on DeVilbiss Air Control and spray guns. And anything we can do to help you in the future, please feel free to ask. We're here to help, that's for sure. Kevin, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you've covered everything very well, Jeff. Thanks for offering to be the facilitator, presenter today. You always do a great job. One thing I would like to remind the group about is we have a number of ICAR courses scheduled beginning in June and through the summer months for ICAR credit, virtual courses that you can invite your customers to attend. You can attend yourself if you're working towards ICAR credits. And I encourage you to watch your email, watch your messages from the RDA group, because if you haven't seen the initial schedule that Melissa sent out, I'm sure there'll be follow-ups very soon.
Okay, thanks everyone. And yes, I will be sending information on the ICAR classes. The first one is actually scheduled for June 17th, so they'll be seeing that shortly. But yeah, it will be good for an ICAR credit, and Dennis Beardsley is doing that. But thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Kevin, and thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be in touch with future training opportunities. Have a great day.